never mind me. I'm just playing the software update waiting game because Apple released a flurry of updates today. Software, of course. Oh, it seems I'm allergic. Maybe I should just hold the camera steady and wait for everything to finish. Maybe that logo will eventually disappear. It did. Wow. We're at another premiere, this time for Agatha. It was her all along.
What?
You're not quite old enough. Can you handle it?
Probably.
What?
The TV 14 rating. I think I like your icy a little more than the root beer. It was free.
Snacks.
Those were free too. Well, the snacks I had to pay for, but we brought them in. They gave us the popcorn and the pop for free. And I brought Mom along too. Mom has no idea what's going on in the MCU.
What's the MC?
The MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh.
The law of presence is like watching a sunset without snapping a photo, fully absorbing the colors, the warmth, and the moment as it happens instead of trying to capture it for later. It's about living in the here and now, where life actually takes place rather than getting lost in the past or worrying about the future. Think of presence like playing a game of Jenga. If you're too busy thinking about the next move or stressing over the last one, you'll miss the subtle details that keep everything balanced in the moment. It's the art of focusing on the block you're touching right now, not the tower you're afraid you might topple. The law of presence is like savoring a fresh cup of coffee, feeling the heat, inhaling the aroma, and tasting each sip instead of rushing to finish it. You're not thinking about your next task or lingering on yesterday's events. You're fully immersed in the experience of now, where life truly unfolds. Being present means surrendering to the flow of time as it unravels, like floating on a river instead of trying to paddle upstream. It's letting the current take you where it will, knowing that the power of being fully in this very moment is where life's richness and clarity reside. I updated to iOS 18 on my current iPhone, the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Got all these numbers. I'm not a math dude. One Impossible Whopper for $4. That's about as much as I can math today, so forgive me. There was sloppiness and jank throughout iOS. Still, I perceive it, and I really don't care if you don't. I mean, hey, if you don't mind what you see, knock yourself out, but you can't say that it's not there, because I know it's there. It's systemic. It just exists. Like, for example, you load the weather app and scroll and watch it jump. It's as simple as that. And it's gotten better over time, but doesn't matter how fast those things get, the software is still nerfing it. That's my experience with the iPhone, and I remain cautiously optimistic that that will continue to improve, but we're nowhere near out of the woods. And I tried to get things working such that I could switch to an iPhone. Like, could I actually do it? Could I actually make that leap from something that mostly doesn't annoy me? And I say that this week of all weeks because it must have been some kind of recent software update for my Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra that has completely demolished my mobile connectivity. Like, it's been bad, really bad. Not just in and around the same areas, but like everywhere I've gone, depending on the signal strength, like it needs more signal strength in order to have any kind of connectivity. And it's not just temporary, and it's not just location-based. It's just a little off-putting. So I assume it was a software update. I hope it's not the hardware that would necessarily be failing, because we're mid-cycle with those devices. But I could switch to an iPhone. I'm not likely to. I'm being pretty well served by what it is that I have now. And quite honestly, despite the gains that I've seen in iOS, whether we're talking fully polished, fully baked iterations of iOS or new releases, which can sometimes be a little more glitchy by comparison, it's still not what I need it to be. I have been accustomed to better. So iOS would be a massive step backwards from Android. I'll specifically say Samsung's version of Android. And some people complain about the bloatware that Samsung comes with. Really? You've seen Apple lately, right? I know, Rocket. I sound like a broken record sometimes, especially when I've been talking about it since iOS 7. It's not my fault. I'm not responsible for it. Just sharing what's in my mind, in my heart. in my soul. The Stoic law of control is like holding onto a kite in a field full of tornadoes. You can't control the whirlwinds around you, but you can control how you hold the string. Let the kite soar within your grasp. Don't waste time chasing the tornadoes. You'll never catch them anyway. Imagine it's like playing dodgeball with 100 inflatable flamingos. You can't stop the random hits or predict where they'll come from, but you can decide how you'll dodge, duck, and keep on playing. Your focus is on your own moves, not controlling the chaos flying toward you. Or think of it as running a car wash, but it's always raining. You can't stop the downpour or make the sun shine, but you can control the quality of your soap, how smoothly you scrub, and whether or not you choose to sing while doing it. Rain or shine, the job's yours to handle. It's like carrying a basket of eggs across a trampoline. The bounce is inevitable, but how you carry those eggs, that's all you. Your focus is on keeping your steps steady and not worrying about the bounce beneath your feet. It's not about controlling the trampoline, it's about mastering your own balance. I have to say, by far, the most compelling feature of iOS 18 in relation to macOS, so long as you have both, is the iPhone mirroring application and functionality. I can use the iPhone remotely. I could connect to it wirelessly, and yes, the audio passes through instantaneously, and I am interacting with my iPhone by way of the Mac, natively. Do you really want to know what I think? All y'all telling me with a straight face that iOS is better than Android. It couldn't be replicated. It must be the phone. Yeah, it's everybody's iPhone. It's iOS. I've been telling you this for years. But Chris, I can hear you screaming. It can be fixed. Yeah, it can be fixed, but it hasn't been. That's the whole problem. Apple's quality control in terms of software is in the tank. It's trash. This nonsense doesn't happen on other platforms, aka Android. Or if you saw this happening on an Android device with you carrying iOS, you'd make fun of them, wouldn't you? And for good reason. This isn't going to be fixed. Do you know how I know? Because it hasn't been. History's a great indicator. This is the nonsense y'all signed up for. But go ahead and tell me the iPhone is best in class. Go ahead, keep telling me. Well, it's not all bad. The law of cause and effect is like planting seeds in a garden. Each seed you plant, whether it's a cactus, a sunflower, or a carnivorous Venus flytrap, will grow based on the care and conditions you provide. You can't expect roses if you plant dandelions, and you can't be surprised when that flytrap catches a bug. Everything you sow, you eventually reap. Imagine cause and effect as baking a cake. You choose the ingredients, each one affects the final taste. If you toss in pepper instead of sugar, you'll end up with something far from sweet. The cake doesn't just happen by magic, it's the direct result of every ingredient, every stir, and every second in the oven. Or think of it like pushing a shopping cart down a steep hill. Once you give that cart a shove, it's going to speed ahead, knocking into things and making its own path. But the wild ride, that's all because of the initial push you gave it. What happens afterward is out of your control, but it's all tied back to that first motion. The law of cause and effect is like setting off a chain of fireworks. Light one and you get a bright, beautiful display. Like too many at once and you could end up with sparks flying everywhere. The effect is always linked to the cause, and while you can't always predict how things will unfold, every result traces back to the action you initiated.
What about this iCloud Drive? I have to have that, right?
Yeah, that's where all your documents are synchronized.
Oh yeah, I want that.
Don't touch anything. Don't touch notes. Don't touch any of that. Don't touch anything.
My pages is backed up. That's my documents.
Your photos, hang on, let me show you. Your backups between those two devices are taking up the bulk of it. Your photos aren't taking up that much. Your messages are taking up a chunk, but like
I don't know why.
Your backups, again, according to this, are taking up about 25% of your iCloud storage.
Yeah, but I don't know where they're being what's being backed up. How are you getting there? See, I get lost on
I know. Apple really needs to rework a lot of this stuff, but software is not exactly their forte anymore.
I get confused as to where it's at.
Right. Okay. I'm in iCloud. I scroll down to device backups. The biggest one, it's going in order of size. So the further you go on, the less of an impact it's going to make by toggling. The biggest one you're going to make is toggling workscapes, because that's 138 megabytes. And if you've got free 5 gigabytes of cloud storage now, that's going to make it.
Well, guess what?
Impact.
I'm turning it off.
Okay, turn it off. and it's not going to back it up. We're going to need to disable and delete. If you only use messages on the, do you only use messages on the phone?
Yeah, usually.
Okay, then what we need to do is we need to disable and delete backing up messages to cloud, because then that will recover 500 megabytes.
Well, backing up.
Which is a huge chunk of your free storage.
Okay.
Here it is, UN3481. An explosive iPhone 16 Pro Max. And if you thought this box was explosive, wait until you hear me talk about the software. Until this really radically changes, I mean, I don't understand why people expect me to radically change. The flat design catastrophe, I hope, will someday be behind us. I really do hope. And maybe then, maybe when Apple has a product person leading the company rather than a supply chain expert, I'd be happier. I'll care about Apple as much as they care about software. How about that? Does that make more sense to people who don't seem to understand how visceral this is? Picture this. You're walking through an exclusive tech garden party where everything is shiny, cutting edge, and meticulously crafted. In the corner, there's the iPhone 16 Pro Max lounging in a designer chair, sipping something fancy out of a crystal glass. It's not trying to impress. It doesn't need to. This phone is the embodiment of effortless cool, the one that already has the keys to the most exclusive club in town. It's like the iPhone 16 Pro Max was designed by a secret team of futuristic artisans who only emerge from their hidden mountain lab once every decade. Every inch of this phone is so precisely crafted, it feels like it's levitating in your hand. The edges, smooth as a perfectly skimmed pebble skipping across a glassy lake. The back, it's like they found a way to distill elegance into titanium, making it feel both solid and somehow impossibly light. Other phones are walking around with shiny clothes, but the iPhone 16 Pro Max is like someone in a perfectly tailored suit who just woke up that way. The screen isn't just high-res or vibrant. No, this thing looks like it borrowed the light from another dimension. You're not just watching videos, you're getting pulled into them like you've opened a tiny window into another world. Every color pops like it's been freshly painted by a tiny army of pixelated artists and jetpacks. It's like your eyes are getting a VIP experience at a digital fireworks show where every burst of light is perfectly timed to blow your mind. But the camera? Oh, the camera. This isn't just any camera. It's more like a time machine with a lens. The iPhone 16 Pro Max sees things you didn't even know were happening. Take a picture of your dog running in the yard and somehow it captures every hair mid-flop like it's choreographed. Zoom in, zoom out, it doesn't matter. Because this camera is operating on a level where it feels like it can see the Matrix. Low light shots, it turns your shadows into a stage, spotlighting every detail as if your phone just became the director of a blockbuster movie no one told you about. Battery? Oh, it's not just battery life. It's like the phone has discovered an ancient secret source of energy from some mystical realm. It doesn't just last, it keeps going like it has a tiny power plant tucked inside. You could use it all day, all night, and maybe even through the next day, and it'll still be like, what's next? While other phones are scrambling for a power outlet like they've run a marathon. And the processing power? The iPhone 16 Pro Max's chips are like tiny Zen masters sitting cross-legged inside the phone, guiding every task with serene precision. You want to open 10 apps at once, edit a 4K video, and play the latest game? No problem. The chips don't just handle it, they handle it with such grace that you'd think they're barely trying. What do people love about the iPhone 16 Pro Max? It's the confidence. This phone doesn't just scream for attention. It does everything you need with a level of smoothness that, for the most part, feels like it's operating in its own league, and that, by the way, is not necessarily a compliment. Where other phones are racing to pack in more features or flashier tricks, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is sitting back like, I've got this. It's not just here to show off. It's here to redefine what smartphone even means with a calm coolness that's almost impossible to resist. Almost.
I also like McDonald's because my favorite
Yeah, I like
restaurant.
McDonald's. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's all right.
Do you know a Twinkie is as much calories as 3 Big Macs?
What is?
A Twinkie?
A Twinkie? You like Twinkies?
No, they have way too much calories.
Oh, wait a minute. So you can have 3 hamburgers instead of the Twinkies?
So it would
I think
be
I'd
same
pass and eat the
calories.
Twinkies, but that's just me. I like snowballs.
No, I'm saying that 3 Big Macs is as
Big
much,
Macs?
Yeah, is as much calories as 1 Twinkie.
How you know that?
My friend told me. Like, you're like what, 60?
Yeah.
I'd take a win. She found one.
Spaghetti.
That's what the photo should look like, but instead, it wants to look like that. You tell me whether or not you think this is sloppy. I swipe down, the search bar comes up, and then the keyboard appears. So then I go back to the home screen, swipe down again. You see how it's inconsistent? You understand what I'm talking about now? Like, did you see how sometimes the search bar appears, then the keyboard, and then the keyboard, then suddenly the search bar? This is just swiping down on the home screen with, like, nothing on it. Like, this is the kind of garbage that's been in iOS since 7, and I'm doing nothing else. This is completely unedited, just raw me swiping down. Sloppy Joe, sloppy Joe. The law of perspective is like looking through a kaleidoscope. Turn it just a little and the entire pattern changes. What seems like chaos at one angle becomes beautiful symmetry at another. Life's the same way. How you see things can shift everything. Sometimes all it takes is a small twist of your viewpoint to reveal a completely different picture. Imagine perspective as trying to solve a puzzle while riding a Ferris wheel. When you're low, the pieces seem scattered and impossible to connect. But as you rise to the top, you start to see the full picture. The puzzle pieces haven't changed. It's your vantage point that makes all the difference. Or think of it like hiking a mountain. From the base, the climb looks impossibly steep and daunting, but as you ascend, what once seemed insurmountable becomes manageable, and the view below starts to look small and distant. The mountain didn't change, but your perspective did, making the journey seem less intimidating. Perspective is also like trying to read a book with a magnifying glass. If you're too close, all you see are a few letters, maybe a word or two, but step back and you can read the full story. Shifting your view allows you to grasp the bigger picture, turning confusion into clarity. iOS. It nerfs the hardware big time. And for those of you who would scream, oh, they'll fix it. No, they haven't. Been waiting 11 versions for them to fix certain things, and they haven't. They've merely steamrolled old bugs with new bugs, reworked a few things, optimized a few more things, but even in doing so, they don't go far enough. And for a product that costs as much as it does, it should have a good hardware and software experience, given that the hardware and software is controlled by a single company, Apple, right? Got my Arts Evo case on there. Don't know if you noticed that, but, going to protect it from any kind of drops. The camera still doesn't impress me. Not the way it used to. In side-by-side comparisons against the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, there are some pictures that do turn out better on the iPhone, no doubt about that. And there are some pictures that turn out better on my current device. But overwhelmingly, it isn't the iPhone that catches my eye. And demonstrably, I could upload these photos and have you decide, looking side by side, which one would be better in the same lighting conditions, same scenario, same virtual settings between the two devices. And yeah, it's not as good as people think it is. The iPhone. Samsung's screen seems to be far more fluid, more responsive, the animations, everything across the board, far better, so much better than Apple side by side. I'm just glad I'm not alone, for the most part. Does it work? Yes. Is it workable? Yes. Would I recommend it to other people? Absolutely. Will I continue to use it? Sure. But it's not... It's not what it should be. It's not what it was. Maybe one day it'll be there again. My iPhone review it's more of the same. Yeah. And there are better technologies that exist within other companies' devices. It's just that you're probably locked into the Apple ecosystem. I'm sorry. The law of dialectics is like watching a debate between a cat and a dog over who should rule the house. At first, it seems like they're polar opposites. One wants naps, the other demands belly rubs. But as the argument unfolds, you realize that their differences actually complement each other, and somewhere in the middle, a deeper truth emerges. They both want attention, just in different ways. Imagine dialectics as mixing hot and cold water in a bath. You start with extremes, too hot, too cold, but when you find the right balance, you create something comfortable and soothing. Neither extreme is wrong, but together they form something better than either could alone. Or Picture it like making a smoothie with wildly different ingredients, maybe kale, ice cream, and hot sauce. Separately, they're intense, even conflicting, but blend them together in just the right proportions and maybe you get something surprisingly tasty. The magic of dialectics is in how opposing forces combine to create new possibilities. Dialectics is like dancing a tango with opposing ideas. Both sides push and pull, sometimes clashing, but in the tension, a rhythm forms. The dance is beautiful, not because one partner wins, but because they move together, finding harmony in their contrast. And right there is exactly where my iPhone 16 Pro Max is going to be used as a webcam. And it's a nice webcam, a very expensive webcam, but at least now through iPhone mirroring, I can get to it without actually touching it. That's pretty cool. Next week, I'm going to attempt to record the entire vlog on that device. I'll play with as many possible video settings as I can to produce something that you enjoy, assuming you enjoy the things that I normally do, which don't really fit the norm. I never was normal. Maybe that's my problem. Yeah, it's not the iPhone's problem, it's mine. That's the thing. Yeah, blame the user. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me.